Previously.
So today we are going to Elu. I have never landed on Elu before. I have not put on a science junior or anything like that. We've basically got very limited science equipment because it is a sort of proof of concept. One thing you can do to really save delta V for this is try and do these transfers at the ascending or descending node point. I'm using Kerbal alarm clock just because we have quite a few missions running concurrently. I'm trying to decide what I want to do, and I decide, right, we're just going to capture. And this burn took an absolute age. It actually felt like forever. We've got as much science as I can really be bothered to get, and it's time to land on. Nice and easy, really just, even now, we're still using those engines on 50% and just plop it down nicely. Now, welcome back to basics. So we're on episode 5. Yeah, episode 5. We're moving through season 2 already. Today we're going to be going to Jool. Next transfer window is Jool. As we saw in the last episode, we were going to Elu. Elu and Jool are both on the sort of outside of the Kerbol System. And so I've taken our original Eve craft and I'm just looking at modifying it. So this is the science Eve craft that we had there with the lander. And I thought about, how can I modify it? What can I do to just change it around, add a bit of extra delta V and whatnot. I've looked at the delta V allowance. I don't know if we actually added an extra tank to this one or not, because the thing about Jool is I'm not planning on spending much time there. This is very much a dash crash. By that I mean we're going to do a death dive. I'm not going to visit the other moons. I don't really have the science or at the moment to send a nice big mission there, and I want to get a bit of science before we can send something. And also I like to feel as though we're sending these robotic craft to sort of just get an idea of what's actually going on around a planet, so we can then prepare. We wouldn't send humans to Mars before we sent probes and things like that, and I just like the idea as the science becomes better. So we cover that. You'll notice it's got a large heat shield. On our standard launcher we've been using, I think in every single mission so far this series we've used the same launcher, with I think only the addition of one tank to the Elu mission. Now I will say the following. You see I've put on some solar panels there. This craft is going to dive into Jool, and I have never done a Jool death dive. I made a mistake in the antenna choice, because I was hoping I could actually get some science on the way down, but be aware of antenna usage. So we do our normal launch, and I've sped this up stupid amounts of time so that you don't have to watch me try and orbit. It's a very simple craft now. We've done this many times. It's a nice little launch vehicle. I should probably make it available at some point. It's really simple, and it will take you to, I believe, every single planet in the Kerbol system. I haven't gone to Moho with it yet, but we've been to Elu, which is difficult, so maybe I have to go to Moho next with it. So we get ourselves into orbit, and then it's all about our Jool departure. Now, unlike Elu, Jool is huge. It is massive. It is a huge gravity well, and so big, in fact, that when we did our Elu mission, even though it wasn't quite a transfer window, we actually got an intercept with Jool. Jool, you know what? If you want to go somewhere first time, go to Jool, because it is a big gravity well, and there's lots there to see. And we're not going to see everything. We're just going to see the main planet, but you can see there's the Julian system, and it's almost like a miniature Kerbol system. Lots of moons around it, and you can see there I'm just trying to get a reasonably interesting interaction. I'm just what can I do to make this a decent flight. I'm using the little maneuver node gizmo there. This is something that was not around years ago when I played this, and I wish it was. We used to have to use enhanced maneuver nodes and things like that. It would be nice if I could actually type a number in and change things, but there's many things that would be nice in Kerbal and out there. And again, there are mods for that. MacLeod and these things will do that for you. But we just play around a little bit, and if you want, you can always do it manually. Grab the maneuver node at a distance and try and pull it. So I'm quite happy with the fact that we've got an intercept there, and it's going to be time to do some burning. So I still do not have the probe core that basically allows me to target the maneuver node, so I have to do it manually. if you've got that ability, or you're playing on science mode or just sandbox, it makes life a lot easier. And it may not think that it will, but what it actually does is it stops some of the later on, and if you're seeing this burn, it might have it, but often the maneuver node will start to wander. So yeah, we're burning with our initial sort of second stage first, just to use that up, get a bit of a punch out, and then we use our nuclear engines as we've been using. But yeah, back to that point, because I'm never perfectly on the target vector, there's always going to be a little bit of side movement to it, and that particularly comes apparent towards the end of your burn, and you'll see often the maneuver node marker will start to move around on the nav ball, and this is just because you're not sat on it perfectly. What you can do is you can preempt this and just sort of try and rein it into one side or the other, and vice versa, but in reality, it's only a couple of delta V here or there, particularly with the Jool transfer. You're not too worried about getting exactly the right number. The alternative is you just slow it down, and you see there, you could see the little marker moving. And you'll see we've got our intercept. It's actually pretty good. I'm reasonably happy with it. We can fast forward to our exit from the system, or we can maybe try and trim our orbit a little bit. Even now, while we're around Kerbin, we can still do a little bit of manoeuvring, so you could actually put a maneuver node on your track there and just change it. I decide to leave it. We go into Kerbal alarm clock, and we put just an alarm for the leaving of the sphere of influence, and I just run it to the sphere of influence change, because I want to have a look and see if I can do anything when I'm actually in interplanetary space. I believe that there was there's an ascending node, an ascending or descending node very near to Kerbin, actually, so we're quite lucky in our orbits there. We'd have to move along a long way, and I basically put a maneuver node there and go off. So while that's happening, because it's a long trip, we're going to go back to our space station. And space station, what we're going to use it for? Well, we've got some people up there, but you know what, we should maybe put a science lab up there. Now, you know what, I'm probably not going to use the science lab up in the space station. I think we're getting quite far in our science search at the moment. I quite like going to other planets and getting a bit of science as well, so I don't feel the need right now to actually be doing science around Kerbin. I think it's sort of lost on us a bit, but I would like to see if we can put a little science unit on our satellite, because we're trying to prepare. We're preparing to go to other planets, and we need our crew to be used to doing things around other planets and so forth. Yeah. So again, we take our standard launcher for season 2. This is not the only launcher that I will be using. Do not worry, we will have others. But it's serving a purpose at the moment, and it's really useful. This is the first 2 stages of that launcher. We've got rid of the nuclear stage. I am using some struts, which in the next episode you will realise that it would have been a good idea to have continued that habit. Please use struts; they're really useful. They stop things wobbling. Mess around this. I put a nice advanced SAS unit on there because I want a bit of reaction wheel control there, because it's quite a large craft, and I know it's probably unbalanced. Flick around, sort things out. And then off we go. But before we go, we've got to attach ourselves our escape pod, because we're going to send 2 Kerbals in this, and they need to get home somehow. So we're going to send the same escape pod system that we sent up in the last one. And now I time warp a little until our station is just coming sort of into view almost, and then we're gonna start our launch. Standard launch profile, go up a little bit, turn over. There's many tutorials on that. It's wonderful. And get ourselves up into semi-orbit. And you'll see here I've set the space station as a target, and I'm actually just playing around watching. Now I could go into a higher or lower orbit and do the usual thing, but I am in a hurry, and so I basically go, you know what, let's just let's play around quickly with this. So I start to go as if into its own orbit, but I'm actually sitting down underneath, so I know I'm going to catch up. I speed ahead, and what I want to do is actually just start looking around for closest approaches. I'm using all that beautiful fuel up right now, and I'm starting to get a bit worried and concerned at what happens if I actually run out of fuel. And I start to see the closest approaches appear, and you can actually see on the sort of left and right of the planet there, close approach. This is going hopefully to be quick. I'm just playing around with it, and I'm like, okay, right. this is a rendezvous in an orbit, which is, I could have done it quicker. I could have done it from launch if I had the Delta V, but I was concerned that once you start using the Delta V, you can't get it back. So I was aware of that, and probably could have done it quicker. So we spin around the night side of the planet, we get ready for our maneuver. At this point, I actually should be able to see the space station, but I couldn't. And I was a little concerned about this because I thought maybe I've missed it. As it turns out, I've got very sort of two-dimensional view of the planet, and I should have looked up or down, I think. Try looking up. No, we're still not going to look up. So I'm looking at target, and then I actually use the craft to identify the target location. And then we just do our standard burn towards. We're going to burn towards, wait until it gets nearby, burn to be at the same speed. Then you see we're just really nice and close at this point. And I decide to get rid of that excess rubbish. So yes, it's another piece of rubbish floating around in the same orbit as our space station. I'm sure that will not come back to bite me in the future, will it? We've got that little transfer tug unit at the back there that's just going to bring us in, and it's basically going to do some station keeping for us. I could have done it with the main craft, but bigger units take more time, frame rate drops, and I just wanted to use a little tug device. And if I was really clever, I'd have actually put a docking port on it, and then I could do this. So I decided to pull off the escape or return craft first, dock that nice and easy, and then we come to the big one, which after doing the small one sideways like that, this should have been easy. It was not. Do not ask me why it took as long as it did, but we've still got that craft at the bottom, which is fully loaded with RCS, so I wasn't too worried about that. And I actually think it was one of those being a bit too timid moments, so I was lining it up. I should have gone into chase cam mode. I didn't. If you look, I fixed the autopilot to hold us at normal, which was really useful. And I bounced off. I think I hit the docking node about 3 or 4 times, backwards and forwards, and it would not engage. I don't know if there's a magnetism setting that I've flicked somewhere that's gone off. If there's anything like that, please do comment down below. Normally, there was no movement from the space station at all towards it, and you notice the space station is now starting to get a bit of an angle on it, obviously. So then we just go in, and again I line up, and you can see what you can do is, yeah, there we go, finally docked. I just pushed it in, and then there we are, the space station is attached. How exciting! We have 4 Kerbals in orbit in our little space. It looks like a little hammer gone wrong. So back to Jool. We do our plane change. I don't want to be interacting with any of the moons of Jool. Okay, I don't want to be in their sphere of influence. I have enough science equipment to do pretty much just the science around Jool. I don't want to lessen any future mission by already have gotten, temperature and pressure data and things like that. So I'm aiming straight for Jool, and that's what I'm going for. And I want to put it into a sort of equatorial type orbit. I don't mind which direction because I'm not going to land. I'm going to be basically deorbiting. I'm going to hit that atmosphere and deorbit. So we do that. We do that, and the orbit isn't perfect, and we do a bit of normal burning, and you can do this, a little bit of normal burning, try and change our inclination a little bit, and then we go a bit too far, so we've got to burn back out, and I'm aware of, I want to periapse. I don't want to, now although I'm going to do like a death dive into Jool, I do not want to do it straight from arrival because there's a vast amount of energy there. We've got a nuclear engine with a lot of power in it. So while that's fast forwarding to its encounter, we're actually going to send the veterans home. They've been on the station there for a while, and I also wanted to test this return craft and see how it went. So you'll see it's little docking port, little fuel tank. There's loads of fuel on it. It doesn't actually need to have that much. We burn as it comes down because it hasn't got a heat shield, because I decided not to put a heat shield when it's got that engine. It was a playoff. We get rid of its extra fuel tank, go down. It's got a little RCS thruster thing on the top still, but we're not really using that. We release the parachutes, 2 of them, and go through. Lovely shot through the clouds, and they're heading home. And so that is our first sort of space station crew. So since the return of Nakot from orbit, this is the first crew we've had return from Kerbin orbit, which is quite nice. So we meant to put them there this time. So we get back to the back to the Jool death dive, and we're coming into the Jool system. You can see it is a massive system. You can actually send huge craft here and go to every one of those moons, and there's vast amount. It's a beautiful sort of thing to do. I think we will be coming back here with a lot of craft, because there's a lot to see and there's a lot to do in Jool. I'm not sure where the series is going to end up regarding how many more series it'll be, how far we'll go with it, but Jool we will definitely be revisiting. So we get into high above Jool and we do our first science load. Now remember, we don't have a scientist on board, there's no Kerbal, so once we do some of this science, a lot of it is one use only. We trim our orbit down. We're not trying to go through the atmosphere, we want to just be nearby, and then we want to try and use our fuel as efficiently as possible. I don't believe we actually have enough. Well, we have enough fuel to get into orbit, but we don't have enough fuel to get into a circular orbit. Okay, it takes a lot of energy to get right down to Jool. But what we can do is we can actually bring it down so that we don't get any sort of odd interactions with moons and things, because they will throw you off. And I'm quite happy with my periaps right now. So you see there we get a couple of interactions. I think that was it Val or something like that. Layth, the closest moon, we don't get an interaction with, which is really nice. And then I just try and have a look around and think, do I want to change the position of my periaps? Because I really want to come down in the sunlight. I want us to come down in the sunlight. So we go up to our apoaps, and I play around again, and I think in the end you could do this, you could move around a bit, but in the end I was just sort of like, we're going to hit the atmosphere and it's going to stop us quick, so I'm pretty sure we're going to be in the light. So here we go, we orientate ourselves retrograde and we get rid of our nuclear engines. Now we had a little bit of fuel left in them, but not enough to really do anything here. And here is the craft. Some parachutes, a bit of science, and now I hoped to open the antenna when we'd slowed down in the atmosphere, because I assume we would be able to slow down. Jool's atmosphere is thick, thicker than Eve's. It is a thick, dense planet. And you see right now we hit the interface, the nuclear engines blow up almost instantly, and hitting that interface you'll see the heat shield is taking a lot of heating there. We're going through a long time period. Now I didn't realise that the parachutes had I'd armed them. I hadn't realised. I hadn't realised they were going to open at that height either, so it was a double failure there. Maybe if I'd held those until later and we'd used them later on, it would have been okay. I don't know. What I do know is that we started to slow down our fall, very much like when you go into Eve's atmosphere. You will slow down a lot. We don't have parachutes, and we are significantly slowing down. You see our height going down. This atmosphere is really thick. I think if we'd had parachutes, we might have been able to put the transmitter out. I did try as we were going down. You see the lovely cloud effects there. But no. And we get too far, and it's the end. So with that, goodbye.